Chapter 1: The Desire for Happiness. It is my hope that the reader of this small book will take away a basic understanding of Buddhism and some of the key methods by which Buddhist practitioners have cultivated compassion and wisdom in their lives. The methods discussed in the following chapters have been taken from three sacred texts of Buddhism. Kamalashila was an Indian who helped develop and clarify the practice of Buddhism in Tibet. His work, Middle-Length Stages of Meditation, contains the essence of all Buddhism. Togme Sangpo's The 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas and Langri Tangpa's 8 Verses on Training the Mind have also been drawn upon in the preparation of this book. I would like to stress at the outset that one doesn't have to be a Buddhist to make use of these meditation techniques. In fact, the techniques themselves do not lead to enlightenment or a compassionate and open heart. That is up to you and the effort and motivation you bring to your spiritual practice. The purpose of spiritual practice is to fulfill our desire for happiness. We are all equal in wishing to be happy and to overcome our suffering, and I believe that we all share the right to fulfill his aspiration. When we look at the happiness we seek and the suffering we wish to avoid, most evident are the pleasant and unpleasant feelings we have as a result of our sensory experience of the tastes, smells, textures, sounds, and forms that we perceive around us. There is, however, another level of experience. True happiness must be pursued on the mental level as well. If we compare the mental and physical levels of happiness, we find that the experiences of pain and pleasure that take place mentally are actually more powerful. For example, though we may find ourselves in a very pleasant environment, if we are mentally depressed or if something is causing us profound concern, we will hardly notice our surroundings. On the other hand, if we have inner mental happiness, we find it easier to face our challenges or other adversity. This suggests that our experiences of pain and pleasure at the level of our thoughts and emotions are more powerful than those felt on a physical level. As we analyze our mental experiences, we recognize that the powerful emotions we possess, such as desire, hatred, and anger, tend not to bring us very profound and long-lasting happiness. Fulfilled desire may provide a sense of temporary satisfaction. However, the pleasure we experience upon acquiring a new car or home, for example, is usually short-lived. When we indulge our desires, they tend to increase in intensity and multiply in number. We become more demanding and less content, finding it more difficult to satisfy our needs. In Buddhist view, hatred, anger, and desire are afflictive emotions, which simply means they tend to cause us discomfort. The discomfort arises from the mental unease that follows the expression of these emotions. The constant state of mental unsettledness can even cause us physical harm. Where do these emotions come from? According to the Buddhist worldview, They have their roots in habits cultivated in the past. We are said to have accompanied us into this life from past lives when we experienced and induced in similar emotions. If we continue to accommodate them, they will grow stronger, exerting greater and greater influence over us. Spiritual practice then is a process of taming these emotions and diminishing their force. For ultimate happiness to be attained, they must be removed totally. We also possess a web of mental response patterns that have been cultivated deliberately, established by means of reason, or as a result of cultural conditioning. Ethics, laws, and religious beliefs are all examples of how our behavior can be channeled by external strictures. Initially, the positive emotions derived from cultivating our higher natures may be weak, but we can enhance them through constant familiarity, making our experience of happiness and inner contentment far more powerful than a life abandoned to purely impulsive emotions. Ethical discipline and the understanding of the way things are. As we further examine our more impulsive emotions and thoughts, we find that on top of disturbing our mental peace, they tend to involve mental projections. What does this mean exactly? Projections bring about the powerful emotional interaction between ourselves and external objects, people, or things we desire. For example, when we are attracted to something, we tend to exaggerate its qualities, seeing it as 100% good or 100% desirable, and we are filled with a longing for that object or person. An exaggerated projection, for example, might lead us to feel that a newer, more up-to-date computer could fulfill all our needs and solve all our problems. Similarly, if we find something undesirable, we tend to distort its qualities in the other direction. Once we have our heart set on a new computer, the old one that has served us so well for so many years suddenly begins to take on objectionable qualities, acquiring more and more deficiencies. Our interactions with this computer become more and more tainted by these projections. Again, this is as true for people as for material possessions. A troublesome boss or difficult associate is seen as possessing a naturally flawed character. We make similar aesthetic judgments of objects that do not meet our fancy, even if they are perfectly acceptable to others. As we contemplate the way in which we project our judgments, whether positive or negative, upon people as well as objects and situations, we can begin to appreciate that more reasoned emotions and thoughts are more grounded in reality. This is because a more rational thought process is less likely to be influenced by projections, such as mental state more closely reflects the way things actually are, the reality of the situation. I therefore believe that cultivating a correct understanding of the way things are is critical to our quest for happiness. Let us explore how this can be applied to our spiritual practice as we work at developing ethical discipline. For example, we must first understand the value of engaging in moral conduct. For Buddhists, ethical behavior means avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions. There are three kinds of non-virtuous actions: acts done by the body, actions expressed by speech, and non-virtuous thoughts of the mind. We refrain from the three non-virtuous actions of body killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, the four non-virtuous actions of speech, lying and divisive, offensive, and senseless speech, and the three non-virtuous actions of mind, covetousness, malice, and wrong views. We can appreciate that developing such restraint is only possible once we have recognized the consequences of these actions. For example, what is wrong with the senseless speech? What are the consequences of indulging in it? We must first reflect upon the way idle gossip leads us to speak badly of others, waste a lot of time, and leaves us unfulfilled. We then consider the attitude we have toward people who gossip, how we don't really trust them and would not feel confident asking their advice or confiding in them. Perhaps we can think of other aspects of senseless speech that are unpleasant. Such reflection helps us restrain ourselves when we are tempted to gossip. It is these seemingly elementary meditation practices that are, I believe, the most effective way of bringing about the fundamental changes necessary in our quest for happiness. The three jewels of refuge. From the outset of the Buddhist path, the connection between our understanding of the way things are and our spiritual behavior is important. It is through this relationship that we establish that we are followers of the Buddha. A Buddhist is defined as one who seeks the ultimate refuge in the Buddha. In his doctrine, known as the Dharma, and in the Sangha, the spiritual community that practices according to that doctrine, these are known as the three jewels of refuge. For us to have the will to seek ultimate refuge in the three jewels, we must initially acknowledge a dissatisfaction of our present predicament in life. We must recognize its miserable nature. Based on a true, profound recognition of this, we naturally wish to change our condition and end our suffering. We are then motivated to seek a method for bringing this about. Upon finding such a method, we view it as a haven or shelter from the misery we wish to escape. The Buddha, Dharma, the Sangha are seen to offer such shelter and are therefore apt providers of refuge from our suffering. It is in this spirit that a Buddhist seeks refuge in the three jewels. Before we seek refuge from suffering, we must first deepen our understanding of its nature and causes. Doing so intensifies our wish to find protections from suffering. Such a mental process, which incorporates such study and contemplation, must also be applied to develop our appreciation of the Buddha's qualities. This leads us to value the method by which he attained these qualities, his doctrine, the Dharma. From this ensues our respect for the Sangha, the spiritual practitioners engaged in applying the Dharma. Our sense of respect for this refuge is strengthened by such contemplation, as is our determination of determination to engage in a daily spiritual practice. As Buddhists, when we take refuge in the Buddha's doctrine, the second of three jewels, we are actually taking refuge in both the prospect of an eventual state of freedom from suffering and in the path of my thought by which we attain such a state. This path, the process of applying the doctrine through conscious spiritual practice, is referred to as the Dharma. The state of being free of suffering can also be referred to as the Dharma, as it results from our application of the Buddha's doctrine. As our understanding and faith in the Dharma grows, we develop an appreciation for the Sangha, the individuals, both past and present, who have attained such states of freedom from suffering. We can then conceive of the possibility of a being who has attained total freedom from the negative aspects of mind, a Buddha. And as our recognition of the miserable nature of life develops, so does our appreciation of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels in which we seek shelter. This intensifies our quest for their protection. At the outset of the Buddhist path, our need for the protection of the three jewels can at most be grasped intellectually. This is especially so for those not raised inside the faith, because the three jewels have their equivalent in other traditions. It is often easier for those who have been raised inside such a tradition to recognize their value. Living cyclic existence. Once we finally recognize the suffering state we are in, the all-pervasive suffering that the afflictive emotions such as attachment and anger inflict upon us, we develop a sense of frustration and disgust with our present predicament. This, in turn, nurtures the desire to free ourselves from our present state of mind, the endless cycles of misery and disappointment. When our focus is on others, on our wish to free them from their misery, this is compassion. However, only once we have acknowledged our own state of suffering and developed the wish to free ourselves from it can we have a truly meaningful wish to free others from their misery. Our commitment to liberating ourselves from this mind of cyclic existence must happen before true compassion is possible. Before we can renounce cyclic existence, we must first recognize that we shall all inevitably die. We are born with the seed of our own death. From the moment of birth, we are approaching this inevitably demise. Then we must also contemplate that the time of our death is uncertain. Death does not wait for us to tidy up our lives. It strikes unannounced. At the time of our death, friends and family, the precious possessions we have so meticulously collected throughout our lives are of no value. Not even this precious body, the vehicle of this lifetime, is of any use. Such thoughts have us diminish our preoccupation with the concerns of our present lives. They also begin to provide the groundwork for a compassionate understanding of how others find it difficult to let go of their self-centered concerns. However, it is crucial that we realize the great value of human existence, the opportunity and the potential that our brief lives afford us. It is only as humans that we have the possibility of implementing changes in our lives. Animals have been taught sophisticated tricks and are of undeniable assistance to society, but their limited mental capacity prevents them from consciously engaging in virtual and experiencing real spiritual change in their lives. Such thoughts inspire us to make our human existence purposeful. Spiritual friends, spiritual guidance. In addition to our meditation, it is important to lead our lives responsibly. We must avoid the influences of bad companions, unsavory friends who can lead us astray. It isn't always easy to judge others, but we can see that certain lifestyles lead to less righteous ways. A kind and gentle person can easily become influenced by dubious friends to follow a less moral path. We must be careful to avoid such negative influences and must cultivate loyal friends to help make our human existence spiritually meaningful and purposeful. Regarding friendship, our spiritual teacher is of the utmost importance. It is crucial that the person we learn from are qualified. Conventionally speaking, we seek a teacher who has the qualifications to teach the subject we wish to study. Though someone might be a brilliant physics teacher, the same person may not necessarily be qualified to teach philosophy. A spiritual teacher must have the qualifications to teach what we seek to learn. Fame, wealth, and power are not qualifications for a spiritual teacher. It is spiritual knowledge. We must be sure the teacher possesses knowledge of the doctrine he or she is to teach, as well as the experiential knowledge derived from practice and life led. I wish to stress that it is our own responsibility to ensure that the person we learn from is properly qualified. We cannot depend upon the word of others or upon what people may say about themselves. In order to properly investigate the qualifications of our potential teacher, we must have some knowledge in the central tenets of Buddhism and must know what qualifications a teacher would need. We should listen objectively as the person teaches and watch the way he or she behaves over time. Through these means, we can determine whether the person is qualified to lead us along our spiritual path. It is said that one should be willing to scrutinize a teacher for as long as 12 years to ensure that he or she is qualified. I don't think that this is time wasted. On the contrary, the more clearly we come to see the qualities of a teacher, the more valuable he or she is to us. If we are hasty and devote ourselves to someone unqualified, the results are often disastrous. So take time to scrutinize your potential teachers, be they Buddhist or of some other faith.